This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, so I guess we're good. Okay, we've done the attendance. What I guess I want to insert one quick item here and welcome Eileen Myers to the board today, because this is Eileen's first meeting following her appointment.
Yay!
So-
Welcome.
So
Thank you.
Welcome, Eileen.
Welcome back.
Thank you. in
Yeah,
advance.
welcome back, yeah.
Okay, in terms of the approval of minutes from the last meeting, I think you guys have seen the notes from the November meeting. It was a one-pager. And I'm guilty because I was the person who forgot to turn the recording on. So I stand corrected. And if anybody would like to, anyway, so we're good.
I'd make a motion to approve those minutes of November 20th.
Yeah, let me, Tom makes a motion to approve the minutes from the November meeting.
Second.
Second, Kathy, seconds. You'll get your turn. Okay, do we need a roll call vote for this, or can we just do a voice vote?
Yeah, you don't need a roll call.
Okay,
That's all.
all those approve?
Aye.
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 Okay, thanks. Anyone, any nays? No nays, okay. Item 3, public speak. We do have some folks here today, so I would ask, let's turn to them and see, okay?
No.
Mary?
Speak today.
All right.
No, maybe Leslie. That's Leslie.
Yeah, Leslie, you got your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I was just here to say that from reading the paper, I saw that the Easthampton Savings is offering the Bank America building to the library. And I would like to suggest that the board consider applying for that building if the library cannot get their act together. Yes, Mr. Diamond?
The library pretty much said that they wouldn't be able to do it unless the city gave them a major increase in funding for their operating budget. So, I mean, that's going to be a difficult play there. I had suggested that building, I think it possibly at the last meeting, and I have another suggestion when we come to building issues for this meeting.
All right. Thank you very much. Anyway, I would like to suggest that you people apply for that building. It is centrally located and has parking and is easily accessible. And I understand that there is some thought in local government that we'll just wait 3 or 4 years and then we will go to the city and ask them to build us a new senior center. Well, I have a feeling that's rather short-sighted. The people in this city are still paying for the high school. They are still paying for the new school. We are going to be looking at major money for the water problem that the water problem department is facing. And I think that in 2 or 3 years, we're going to be so badly hit that the people will just simply revolt if we go and ask them for more money for a new senior center building. And perhaps we should, or you should, the city should request that building that is sitting unused on Main Street for a new senior center. Yes, sir. You're muted, Mr. Diamond. Mr. Diamond, you are muted.
And so are you.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was going to say that the building is currently owned by Easthampton Savings Bank. So we should be able to get good response.
All right, folks, let me make something fairly clear. This public speak isn't an opportunity for people to come and engage us in discussion. The people who wish to speak have approximately 3 minutes to say whatever they want to say, but it is not okay for us to engage them in discussion because this was not an item on the agenda for the meeting. So therefore, I've muted the phones, and Stan, we don't respond to this sort of stuff unless it's an agenda item, and at some later point, if we choose to put it on the agenda, then we'll do it. Okay, and if anybody wants to speak, you have to ask the chair for permission to speak or to be recognized by the chair. You just can't start talking whenever you feel like it. Okay. All right.
So you can ask if anybody else has something to say.
All right, because now we still have Mary. We have 2 other folks in the room. You guys have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I changed my mind.
All right, could you state your name, please?
Mary Morris,
Okay,
I'm from the
you
Friends.
got about 3 minutes.
No, I just want to second Leslie's proposition that if the library does not take that, I do think that might be a good space. I had recommended that space prior to when we were having all our issues. I know some people say it's too small, but it might help us right now, give us more than what we have. So I just want to say I agree with her. And I would like to see it on the agenda.
Well, not today.
No, not today, but in a future agenda.
Not today. Ma'am, do you have anything?
No, just that I totally agree with what she says.
State your name.
Sandy Eddy.
Sandy, okay.
And I would also like it looked over to see if we can help us ourselves out, because we're desperately need the space, even if it's a little bit more, we need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Leslie Button. I'm also a member of the Friends, and I would also echo what Mary and Sandy have said. If this could be a topic of the future for the council. They're great names.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Item 4, acceptance of ECOA financial report. Cindy, the floor is yours.
Okay. I have an ECOA financial report. Because I have a court.
There we go.
We entered in all of our accounts payable and deposits and so on. So we're gonna, probably next month, I'll come to you with a study that I'm gonna do of our deposits. So the revenue that we collect from the transportation program, donations we collect from that, fees from the classes, gifts, and look at it a few ways. The classes is the revenue that's coming in for the classes, like a Zumba class, defraying the cost of that individual class. Are the fees that are coming in for all classes and activities and events, defraying the costs of those activities and events, to what extent? So that's something I'd like to do once all the information is entered from the deposits. Just going back to July 1, we're not going to do last fiscal year right now. It'd be a lot to catch up on, but we can do that generally. Same thing with transportation. How are we doing with our fees? Do any fees need to be raised? Should they stay the same? What are the costs the seniors can bear, and that sort of thing. So that's on the revenue side. Also on the revenue side, the formula grant, which I will explain, the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs calculates how much each municipality will receive for senior services based on a formula of $12 per senior. The number of seniors counted was out of date. They brought it in date to the 2020 census for fiscal year 2023 earlier than I expected. So that meant that our grant, which was 40,000 plus, is now 62,000 and change, which really helps us this year because we have expenses associated with buying new furniture through an earmark that was secured. Back when we were going to move to Manchester Hardware, we received a $30,000 earmark that can only be used for furniture. So we took that opportunity to spend that plus some additional funds from this formula grant, plus some of our gift funds to pay for, to get people's tender bottoms off metal folding chairs, and all kinds of other furniture that we really need, falling apart desks and so on. So we're, in buying the new furniture, we have to move the old furniture out. So there's just certain, to make it worth doing this project, and this is all stuff that will be high quality and will last hopefully into moving. We needed that additional revenue that we got in the formula grant for some of that. Then another thing that happened is that we now have a custodian employed by DPW that I supervise, who had no equipment really to do the work other than the most basic work. We needed a new vacuum, we needed all kinds of equipment, leaf blower. So that wasn't in DPW's budget. So with this increase in the formula grant, so there are costs like that that I was able to take care of. And so what I did with the increase in the formula grant was budgeted out some options, and we will continue looking at that through the end of the fiscal year. For example, we might want to add some more activities and events. We'll be able to make all our basic ones that we were already planning, plus we might be able to do some more, but we're going to, I'll cover that in the programming section. So then on the expenses side, so we have we have several accounts. We have a van account, which is where if a donation is specific to our transportation program, that goes, and then the fees go into that and that account was down because during the pandemic, we would only drive like one person at a time before vaccinations, but it's coming back. So we started off the year we ended fiscal year 2022 with $22,000 in that account. And right now, I have encumbered some money from that to help us buy our new vehicle, which won't be totally covered by this earmark we're getting, a $75,000 earmark. And then, of course, we have just our typical repairs that we do each year. So our balance right now is about $21,000 in that account, but I have another almost $15,000 encumbered against that with purchase orders that we plan to spend. I'm sorry, that's the balance after the 6,000 in purchase orders. So what this means is that we have enough money to, once we get our 2 new vehicles, we'll be able to put the signage on them that they're for the Council on Aging, get them registered, get them on the road. If there's any immediate repairs, we have enough money to make those repairs. And then as time goes on, our shuttle is getting older, our little Ford Transit, we do have the funds to make repairs on that. We don't want to go too low in this account and go too wild. So, because there is no money in the budget anywhere else to take care of vehicle repairs. So because I'm only in my second year now, I don't know how much we really need to have in that account, but I'm comfortable for now with what we have. So that's the story with the van account. The fitness account is, again, a revolving fund. Fees from classes and events go into that account. And that's it. That's all. Oh, and fees for the fitness room, the $75 memberships. Okay. That, we started off the year with just under $25,000. That account was hit very hard by the pandemic and hasn't been growing at the rate that it should, but thankfully none of the fitness equipment has broken down or needs to be replaced at $3,000 a pop or whatever it costs today. So, we use that account also to pay for activities, instructors, food for participants, all kinds of supplies for the art classes. Now what I could start doing is have money budgeted, which I did, in that formula grant to pay for activities expenses. So the fitness account hopefully could just cover fitness eventually. I'll be looking into that as time goes on the budgeting end of things. But for now, we have about $7,800 out in purchase orders, and so encumbered from that $25,000 balance, we have about $17,000 in there. Again, I'm not sure what we need to be comfortable yet in terms of running a fitness gym, running all these fitness activities. So I'm happy that we have that because that's nowhere in the city budget then we have a revolving. I said I would make a longer report about our finances, so I'm doing that. I will try to go quicker. We have a revolving account for Title III funds that we received in the past that were to be used for delivering groceries and prescriptions, and I think our companion program mileage. So that's not how they do it anymore. Now, when you get a grant from Highland Valley, it's reimbursement. So you provide the services, you bill them, and they give you money from a very small grant. This account built up somehow well before I got here to the point of being around $25,000. I'm very glad we have that because we have a lot of people driving people to medical appointments, and I can spend from this account to pay for that mileage. That mileage rate is the federal rate, and it just went up. And so we have, if we never get a grant again for volunteers to do their work, we have this, and it's crucial. Can we spend it on other things? Yes, we can spend it on food access, anything related to that as well. And I can talk about that another time on the programming side. The gift account is where if a gift is donated to us that is not designated for transportation, it goes into this account. And we had a bequest made that was rendered into cash a while ago, and that is in there. That's mostly what that is, with a few donations every year. And right now we're using that to cover some things that aren't covered elsewhere. So we have about $15,000 unencumbered in there. It was about $20,000 at the beginning of the year. And the idea is that that's sort of our rainy day when, for something that we couldn't get in any other way. Some of those donations were not specifically designated for anything, but they were said like to bring joy to Easthampton seniors. So I try to keep that in mind when I spend from this account and make sure it's something, if it's from those funds, it will benefit seniors in some particular way. And then our formula grant account. So we have some funds left in the grant from fiscal year 2022, partly due to the pandemic and having to throttle down everything, classes, going to conferences and so on. Then we got that new grant, which I said earlier was just over, I think $62,000. So this I need to double check with the auditor, but I think that the balance coming in was about $75,000. Right now, there's about $57,000 left, but there's $41,000 encumbered against that, and we have personnel costs on top of that. So it's all budgeted, and I expect to spend almost all of it. We don't have to spend all of it by the end of the fiscal year because it's a 10-year grant, and we can carry over some from year to year. Then finally, our city funding, we were awarded for the appropriation for personnel was just over $224,000, and we've expended, by my calculations, just over 83,000 of that, and so and the total city budget just included another $250 for mileage for staff. So really, most of it is personnel. And there's a lot more left in the year to bill for personnel services. So we're good there, and I'll refine that tomorrow with the auditor when I meet with her. So just so you know, our costs will be a little higher overall in personnel than planned because they gave me, starting in November, another 5 hours a week because we were so short-staffed through June 30th, and then I go back to being 35 hours a week. But we can cover that because we didn't hire our clerk and our outreach coordinator, who are both full-time, until November. So we saved money there. So that is, now, what do you do when you get this financial information? In the past, the board voted on spending, and the board doesn't do that anymore. It's an advisory board. So this is really just for the purposes of your education. We don't have to go into this detail every month, but we hadn't done this at all. So other than for the city funding. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay. Questions? Okay. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
All right, item 5.
Okay. Okay.
Hang on
Highland Valley
for 1
report. Yeah. So just click the microphone? No, I guess you have to click the 3 dots. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you should be able to click on that to unmute him, or just click on him. You can't unmute someone else. I guess Pat has to unmute himself. You have to invite him to unmute himself.
Pat, could you unmute your phone, please?
Again.
Okay. Item 5, Highland Valley report. You're up.
So now click the 3 dots, those 3 dots. Nope, he's unmuted.
He's
You can hit
unmuted?
cancel.
Okay. Pat, can you hear us?
There he is.
He went to sleep during them.
Okay, he's
We can't hear you. Oh,
on his end.
yeah. He's,
on his end.
yeah, he's talking to somebody else.
He's gonna log out and log back in.
Is he? Okay.
Do you want to, should we move to another agenda
Okay,
item while he's doing that? I went way over.
All right, why don't we move to the director's report until Pat can, Pat, we're gonna put you off for one go around here, so. All right, director's report, Cindy?
Okay, so it says capital improvements under director's report. But my meeting with the mayor was postponed, where that was one of my items on the agenda, was to go over, we had some things hanging, some threads hanging out there about our building technology and other things that could be what's called a capital improvement project. We, in the budgeting process for the next year, we write up proposals for capital improvement project that would be something outside of our budget, that's a higher ticket item. And as I sit here today, I don't have any that I think I should push for this year. But there were some things that the building really needs. So we had a meeting about that, the mayor and I and DPW, to identify those, but it's not clear that those would go on to fiscal year 2024 as a capital improvement project. And I don't feel ready to talk to the board about them until I have that meeting. And then I could bring you, well, what are those ideas and proposals? My question is, have we done that in the past? Has this body looked at the capital improvement projects that the COA is presenting to the city or not?
I think other than just informing the board, I don't
Okay.
think we played a role in deciding what those projects should be.
Right, or I was thinking more not deciding, but recommending. I already know that this body has recommended, not this body, individuals on the COA board have recommended that we not, for example, get a new HVAC system, which was one of the ideas because ours is so noisy and doesn't work well. If we were going to be there for another 10 years, we could see improve that as a significant improvement to our operations. But is this the right time to do that? I need to, the bathrooms are not ADA accessible. Is there a way to make them better while we're still there to address the concerns that we have? That was another top choice item for a project, but I don't know that this is the year or it's the right thing. So we'll hold on that. Transportation and programming. Transportation, I would just say for now, because I would really like to, as part of the budget presentation that we'll be doing, meeting with the mayor to have the COA budget for fiscal year 2024 discussed, and then it goes into the mayor's budget. And then, so we'll be writing up what are our accomplishments and strengths and challenges over the past year. And so I'll be writing up a report item about transportation and presenting that to you. But just off the cuff today, I can say that the needs are great. People are constantly calling. We are putting people off to PVTA and to companion rides constantly. We are bringing on new companion, which are the volunteer drivers that are for medical rides, because we need more. And so I've met with some other senior centers recently, and it sounds as though their paid van program, where they're paying drivers and they have vehicles as opposed to their volunteer programs, those paid programs don't always handle medical. Ours does handle medical. The other thing I want to mention about transportation is that we are focused on basic necessities and on medical. But the public, our seniors, our participants are banging down the door saying, when are you going to resume the social, cultural, recreational programming that you did with your transportation program, to, especially for people who only get out basically to see the doctor or maybe go to the grocery store, or who can't afford to go to a museum on their own, or want that socialization to defeat the terrible isolation that people have been under with the pandemic and even before. So I have a proposal that I'll be making about that for an affordable and very small scale way to bring that back. And then I'll report back to the board after we meet about that. Programming. I have some notes about programming that I wanted to share with you from our new program manager, formerly activity coordinator, Dawn. I asked her for some highlights. So first of all, in partnership with our friends group, we were able to do a trip because I had some spare driver hours for that week, to Bright Nights, which was a big hit. And the friends bought the tickets, and the seniors who went along paid for their tickets. We covered the drivers. We also we had a full house for that. And then we had a holiday concert that the friends paid for a very popular crooner. So that was a great partnership. So what have we been offering lately? So in the most recent couple of months, we have 5 different art and craft classes going on. In December, we did a special hike for the solstice. We've had coffee hours every single week with different service providers, legislators, and staff. All of our regular social groups and card playing and all of that, and a lot more going on. The Helping Hands Society donated funds so that we could make a little good cheer bag for New Year's Eve, the way we did last year, that we handed out with the meal, the Grab and Go Highland Valley meal. We handed it out at the concert. I brought a bunch to the community center to go to seniors who were picking their food up on New Year's Eve. And we delivered them to housing authority residents. We just picked groups of people to give them out to because we had a limited number. And such a hit, people writing us cards, calling us immediately afterward, and just feeling so, appreciative. Really, just like a can of seltzer and some candy and a little scroll, and it was all beautifully developed, wishes for the new year and so on. Now, we also, you may not have heard, but we now have a partnership. We've had it for, I don't know, maybe about a year with the Hampshire Regional YMCA to do our fitness classes so affordably. So our vendors for this, I mean, you're talking like $35 a class instead of $50 to $75. They are sending somebody over to educate people about how to best use the fitness membership, to use that equipment instead of having the director give an orientation. For years, Linda did a really nice orientation. I'm not getting into that. I want a professional personal trainer coming in and helping people with that. So that partnership has been incredible, and it's at a rate below market. And then we don't have to make sure all those instructors are certified. We don't have to make sure they're up to date on those certifications, and they're all participating in continuing education. So it's a great partnership. And then, of course, we still have our Tai Chi instructor, Lenny, who's wonderful, but it's just really reduced the burden on us so that we can offer high quality classes. Now, we also have had new participants joining us all through the fall. The email newsletter subscription list has grown from 200 people when I first started here to 500. And people are definitely looking at our newsletter, but we're going to create a marketing plan so that we make sure that the newsletter is what it should be, that it's on the website, that it's easy for people to get it digitally, and look into, now that we have the appropriate level of funding for the formula grant, look into the COA mailing that newsletter out to our senior residents instead of just dropping it off, at places. And one important thing about that is that then that newsletter isn't just to inform you what's the menu at Highland Valley, what are the classes, but is to let the public know, what are we up to? Why would we need a new building? What is the story about the new building? So I'm going to invite the board to have a corner of the newsletter once it's going out to more people, so that you can speak directly to the public about what tailed in and how it's going with looking for our home that is not a post office. Just to let you know that every day at least 1 to 2 people come in asking for stamps, even though there's a sign on the door. Okay. So the last thing to say in terms of programming is that now that we have a principal clerk providing that clerical support, opening and helping us open and close the building, helping with data tracking, using my senior center, the database, the way we should use it. And we have the program manager at 30 hours instead of 20 hours. Now we're spending time finally evaluating what are the changing needs of the people who want to use us, what are we offering, how should we change and expand programming to meet our needs. And I want to encourage, if you on the board are not already a member of a small committee, and I think right now we just have one small committee, I want to invite members of the board to participate in a committee, maybe around programming or assessing needs. I'm not quite sure yet. We can talk about it at a future board meeting. We can get into that. So we will we'll make this reflect the whole past year for our budget presentation. So that's what I would say today for all that. And you can stop me if I'm going long, please.
No, it's, do we have any questions for Cindy about this? The director's report?
Good info.
Okay, no questions. Pat, are you set to do the Highland Valley thing?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So my report was brief because I missed the last meeting because I was traveling. So there is no report.
Thank you, Pat.
And I thought I was saying all of that, and it sounded really interesting before, but apparently only I heard it. So sorry.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Pat. Old business, building feasibility update.
Does anybody want to just, either Crystal, Tom, or Joe talk a little bit about the centers that we visited, and we have centers left to visit, and maybe we'll report back to the board about this?
Any volunteers?
I don't know, maybe we can all chime in. I mean, we visited,
Sure.
2 so far, I believe. Cindy and Crystal visited with you. No, you
So
and Dawn. visited.
Dawn and I visited South
South
Hadley and, we are going to Holyoke. And you visited,
We visited,
Wilbraham and Long Meadow.
Meadow, and Worthington's coming up.
and Agawam's coming up,
Ludlow as well.
Ludlow's coming up. So the team that's visiting is Tom, Joe, Crystal, and me and Dawn, the program manager.
And it's amazing how the directors are, I mean, it's like introducing you to a brand new toy, in Long Meadow. You know, we could have stayed there for 4 hours probably. He would have showed us every nook and cranny. And it's a beautiful building. Long Meadow's building is brand new. But this is basically trying to give us a sense of what works, what doesn't work, what you might like to see in a new building, what you don't need in a new building. And they're all different. I mean, Wilbraham is just in the process now. They're in construction. So we haven't visited their new location. Long Meadow is, I don't know, a year old. They've been there. But they have an entire separate gymnasium that the public, they have indoor, this is Long Meadow, with all due respect. They have indoor pickleball courts. They have a raised walking track. And it's open to the public, not just seniors. And to me, the good feature of that was that you are supplying your future seniors. So if you've got a bunch of 30, 40 something year olds using your gymnasium, they're getting exposure to your senior center. And whether they realize it or not, they just need to wait a minute or two and they will be seniors and will hopefully be your new clientele. But I think the real benefit to the visits from my perspective is even in this brand spanking new building in Long Meadow, the directors already identified some shortcomings, some things they wish they would have done a little different. So
Design issues.
We get a chance to learn. Some things were designed too small. A raised stage, which requires a lift to get up to a stage. Expenses that they probably could have avoided, but it really gives us a laundry list of do's and don'ts and what we might see. And keep in mind that it's not going to be this committee or Cindy that decides what this might be like. It's going to be the whole community, we hope, as we get into visioning needs assessments. What do you want to see in a senior center? There'll be a lot more input from a much broader group of people, but I think this gives us an opportunity, and with your knowledge of senior centers, the do's and don'ts of what you want to see or don't want to see in a new building.
And different models. So in Long Meadow, they're collecting a lot of revenue from that public that's using that facility. But they were promised that Parks and Rec would manage that facility. That didn't happen, and the senior center has to manage that facility with the same amount of staffing. Or another thing we learned was that if the public approves a project that costs $10 or $12 million, and by the time they're building it, that costs 15, that response was, then let's make it smaller. And when they made it smaller, the storage all got too small to hold the tables, the chairs. And so when I would like to, one of the things I want to look into is, just because on the plan, you see the storage, you see the spaces in 2D, is there a standard for how much storage you need? But then what kind of furniture do you end up buying? Is it going to fit in there? Or the issue with the stage, do you need a raised stage? Then you have to have a lift, but the whole public was probably like, rah, we want a raised stage. Can you make do without a raised stage? And finally, some places are so happy to have a patio. Other places aren't using their patio because people don't want to be out in the hot weather or the cold weather. And is there anything in between anymore? That was making me think about designing for climate issues that are going forward, because this building should last a long time. And then the sustainability of the building, how green is it? How energy efficient is it? There's a lot of stuff to think about before even proposing what kind of physical site would we want to look at. Like we talked about Bank of America or Manchester Hardware or these other places to move into and rehab. But when we there's just so many things that we might want in a building. And lastly, should it be a space that we could change the use of in the future if the senior population eventually goes down and maybe the younger adults and middle-aged adults goes up, might want to use it in different ways. There's so much to look at. So this process has just started. I was going to ask the committee, once we've visited a suitable number and spread of projects and centers, how are we going to report back to the board? Are we going to write something up for them? Do we have a deadline?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, and I think it would probably, once we've done pretty much all the site visits that we've got planned, I think one of the things we might do is, as a smaller group, is sit down and talk about what are the major takeaways or the lessons that we've learned from this. And talking about the building, you know, like the design of the building, but also the process by which you try to get this building built. Because one of the things that struck me, I think they mentioned in Longmeadow, you know, one of the issues was whether this should be a senior center or whether it should be a community center. And that, you know, while meeting the needs of multiple groups may sound good, a lot of the seniors weren't in favor of it because they felt like they were losing out, that, you know, they weren't getting a senior center. They were getting some other building that they'd have to share with somebody else. So, I mean, there's some of those issues that I think we need to highlight.
Another little thing that came out that had sort of surprised me, caught me off guard, was I'm thinking, okay, all one floor, because we're on 2 floors now and it's, you know, it's not handicap accessible. All one floor makes it perfect. Wrong. All of the designers are saying we need 2 floors because 1 floor in this massive building, you've got seniors that are having to walk from this end to that end, and it's a half a mile walk.
Long walk.
So they do 2 floors with an elevator. So it's much more compact and much easier to get up and down, obviously, with an elevator, and you're not walking so far in this massive building.
Yeah.
So Long Meadow's 2 stories, Wilbraham's going to be 2 stories. I'm not sure about South Hadley if it was.
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to ask you to be recognized
Sure.
to speak.
Sure. Go
You've
ahead.
got to apply this equitably across the table. South Hadley and Hadley, I think, are 1 story. Yeah, and there was a very strong push to make it 1 story. Hadley's not that big though, so you can easily walk. Yeah.
What was the square footage, Joe? I forget, like in Long Meadow. Was it 16,000 or was it 9,000? I don't have my notes.
20-something
thousand square feet. Okay.
Sure. Eileen?
Okay. Many years ago, we did the study where we sent out a survey to the seniors of what did they want to see in a senior center? And is that being taken advantage of during this whole process?
One of the directors, I think the lady in Wilbraham, had mentioned that they also did a survey, and I think that's something that we could certainly.
Yeah, because we've already
Do
kind of
surveys.
done all that work before, and we got it in. I went and looked at my old notes, and unfortunately, I tossed out the nice glossy card that showed the results of that survey. And I think there's little pieces that are in there that will help, as well as, you know, feedback from the friends.
Who did that survey?
We did.
Was it under Linda or under
Linda would
Brendan?
know.
Okay.
Was it the
was it under-
2018 study
I think so,
that
yeah.
you sent out? Or
That was
Yeah, somebody
that
sent
was
out, yeah.
in 2016. There was a study that launched and was
Right.
printed in 2018.
Yeah,
But it's not
probably.
so much about a senior center, it's about the needs of
Yes,
seniors.
so I'm thinking if we can somehow dovetail that in.
Or build on that
Yeah.
first survey.
I mean, you know, things change,
Sure.
but I think we shouldn't just toss that aside.
Yeah.
There was a good amount of time and effort and money put into it.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to see that included, and if you're looking for volunteers, I'd like to help.
Oh, a number crunch.
Okay, Yeah,
So for the public, that survey's on the front page of our website. If you go to easthamptonma.gov to departments, then Council on Aging, right on our homepage, that study is linked.
you are good.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay,
Senior-
Hello?
Question.
So I just wanted to, hi Eileen. I just wanted to comment, that's really good, but I'm wondering if, not another study, but if anywhere we can get some information about changing demographics. Because I think there's been a change from 2018 and there might, depending how long this takes to implement. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I wrote that down, Louise.
okay, old business, item B, senior tax work-off update.
Yes. So we have a senior tax work-off update that I will email to the board, and there's just a couple of tentative things on it. But basically, what we did was we broadly advertised about the program. We got additional candidates this year over the first 2 years. But many people who were already in positions continued. And so, because they were already trained, wanted to do it again, and the city has the right to rehire them. Thankfully, to handle all of the new applicants, the school came on board. So now our school department is participating, and they're about to onboard a number of people. So we have, of the maximum of 20 slots that the auditor had budgeted for in our overlay account, we have 11 volunteers have been matched. And then, plus the 4 that are being onboarded to the schools, that's 15, and there may be 1 more to get to 16. So that's great, because the first year, we had far less than that. So this is the 3rd year of a 3-year pilot. And then when I hand out the report, it'll show you who has which positions and who's supervising them. One issue is that we started out with doing this by the fiscal year. It needed to be done by the calendar year. We've now opened our 2nd cycle where we're going by the calendar year. The problem is that the first 2 years, different years were butting up against each other, and people can only earn $1,500 a year maximum as set by the state. So we're just there's some wrinkles to iron out there, because some people, no fault of their own, worked more hours so that it would total in 2022 more than $1,500, because it was 2 different work cycles.
Mhm.
So I just thankfully hope that's only 1 person, and trying to find out how we handle that. But other than that, either by the 3rd quarter, which just happened, or by the 4th quarter of 2023, people would be paid up to date. And then the work they're doing right now from January through November, their credit would come off their FY24 property tax bill. And then we would be in the proper cycle, matched to the proper year going forward. Now, my question to the council is, to this board is, this was a 3-year pilot. We just started year 3. What happens after the 3 years? Do I just chat with the mayor about year 4 and on? Do we have any recommendations to make?
I'm guessing, thanks, John.
Chair recognizes Tom.
I'm just guessing at this, but the fact that this was originated by the city council with the mayor, and then sort of dropped in your lap, Joe was part of the original committee. I'm guessing that group they're probably going to want some sort of assessment of what happened in that 3 years, how did it work? And then I would assume the city council is going to actually have to vote to continue the program beyond the pilot stage.
Yeah, JP was one of the primary players in getting it up and running.
And Peg was the other, right? But she's off the board now. So.
Yes.
Okay, So
That
it's,
could be a conversation you have with the mayor.
Yeah.
Start.
okay. So then we just have to figure out when that would need to happen, because the next application period is November 2024. So, when would city council take this up? Okay. Just trying to think if there's anything else about senior tax work-off that's important. Any
I guess
questions?
the other thing, because we ran it as a pilot, it gave us a lot of flexibility to sort of try something 1 year and see if it worked better, or, you know, if it didn't. And I guess part of the, whatever report or whatever part of your discussion with the mayor would be is, you know, this is something that we've gone through this process and we've tweaked it a whole lot of ways. And this is how, you know, tell her what you think is the best way for us to run it.
The main,
Joe has to recognize me, not you.
no, I shut my mouth.
Hadn't you said in the conversation that there were some roadblocks in there that were built in that actually did a pretty good job of not allowing people to be part of the program for whatever reason, certain requirements or restrictions, that we should make recommendations to ease some of those compared to other cities?
Yeah, I
and
think
towns around us?
one of the things was the, you know, the annual earnings, you know, the money thing. Because I think it was keeping, because the kind of people, or some people who are needed for some of these jobs, you know, aren't living on Social Security.
Right.
So maybe we should consider raising the, you know, whatever the income limit.
I thought there were a couple that you had come up with too, Cindy, that
Right.
were sort of roadblocking certain people that brought some great qualifications to the table that could have been valuable to the program.
Cindy,
Just to let you know, so we just learned that to get a regular senior tax exemption, as long as you qualify, you don't have to be paid up on your taxes. So probably that's true for senior tax work-off. We've been operating under the premise that you can only apply if you were paid up on your taxes. But
yeah,
that's something that we're gonna talk about here at City Hall some more. The collector just informed me of this. And then look at, should we change the eligibility criteria, because that's an Easthampton choice that's in there. Also an Easthampton choice is that the income should not exceed the low moderate income, which I think is from the CPA. So the assessor's office gave me that, and actually that increased significantly. So it's so much more inclusive of many more people. And so I would propose that maybe after I have a chance to talk about it at City Hall, if a small group wants to talk to me about the criteria before we bring it back to a board meeting, we can.
That one was kind of a dull moment where I'm applying to be part of the senior tax work-off program to get help with my taxes. And I happen to be a little bit behind on my taxes right now because I'm struggling. So that's why I'm applying for this program. But I can't apply because I'm a little bit behind. on my
because you're
taxes.
behind, yeah.
It seemed like, yeah, so I think you're right. That's one, if we could get that loosened up, that would be great.
Or at least have the flexibility to deal with that on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
Cindy,
It's 1 o'clock.
it's 1 o'clock. Okay, new business, I suppose we can probably get into because it's been a couple of meetings since we've had like a complete meeting with the, you know, the director's input and things like that. So I've been okay with taking the time to devote to that today. Okay, do we have any further comments that people would care to make? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
You're gonna make the motion.
Oh,
You gotta make the motion, Eileen.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Pat makes the motion.
I'll second it.
Eileen seconds. All those in favor, raise a hand. Okay, we're good. All right, folks, thanks
Thank you.
very much. And have a good day.
Can I ask?
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.